Well, it appears as though a very prominent evangelical content creator, Sean McDowell, is making a bit of a pivot in his content creation to pretty much solely focus on the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And one of the reasons I think he's doing this is because there's an upcoming debate between him, myself, and 9 other Latter-day Saints in the online space. And specifically, we're going to be taking a look at a conversation that he posted yesterday with 2 other evangelicals claiming that the creedal Christian view of God is far more loving. We'll see if that holds any water. We're also going to be taking a look at some claims from a man that says that he is the Davidic servant and see if his behavior is matching up with someone of that calling. I'll let you decide. Also, today is day 8 of proving just how foolish the argument is from the critic's point of view that Joseph Smith created the Book of Mormon out of whole cloth from his own frenzied mind. All this and more. My name is Jackson Wayne Paul, and welcome to Latter-day Saints.
What power shall stay the heavens from pouring down knowledge from heaven upon the heads of the Latter-day Saints?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Latter-day Saints, okay? For our first-time viewers, we're so pumped to have you here with us. Essentially what this show is a news and pop culture commentary show made by Latter-day Saints, intended for Latter-day Saints, but visitors are always welcome, and we have a growing audience of them. As always, throw a W in the chat if you are a non-member and watching this show. But essentially, we're not official representatives of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, but we love taking a look at things happening in the Latter-day Saint community, online, wherever it's at, and run our mouths on the internet about it. So if you find value in what we're doing, just hit follow, okay? I'm joined in the studio today by none other than my co-host, Britton Parkinson. How you doing?
Hey, happy to be here. I know there's many of you that are very concerned that Brandon is never coming back, but he's coming back. Hopefully we can get him in next week. He's kind of going to be focusing on some other stuff when he gets back. But yeah, so he does send a message that he loves all of you. So
exactly, he'll be coming back soon. But we wanted to start off before we get into the featured story, which is going to get fun. It's going to get fun here real quick. Well, I wanted to do something cool because I got a really cool message from a guy named Caleb, okay? I'm just going to read this for you. His name's Caleb England. He sent us a message late last night, and he said, "Hey, Jackson, I love your content and have been touched recently with the passing of Chuck. You and your brother gave me the last kick of inspiration I needed to start a channel. Just threw up my first video. Thanks for encouraging me." That's what I'm talking about, because if you go back to our tribute video that we made in honor of Chuck, one thing that we wanted to focus on is relatively how little time that he had been posting online and creating a platform of restored truth, right? Just over a year and 4 months. And to see the massive positive impact that he made in that short amount of time. And then I wanted to encourage everyone that in some form or fashion is taking their light and hiding it under a bushel and seeking out ways to encourage others to, draw near to Jesus. And this guy, Caleb, looks like he is feeling passionate and he wants to do that. And so we're going to watch this first little video that he posted, shout him out. And then I want to do something cool. You guys, whenever we've promoted another GoFundMe or some other page, you guys flood that person's page with so much love, so much support. And so I would love to see Latter-day Valor pass 1,000 followers on Instagram today. That would be so cool. And so we'll link it in the description. If you wouldn't mind, just pause this video right after this and go give him a follow, because I know that it would mean a lot to him. So let's watch this video from Caleb and check it out.
I've been thinking a lot lately about how to be a better disciple of Jesus Christ. And one of the ways that I felt prompted to is to start this channel called Latter-day Valor that will focus on becoming brave and courageous members of the Church of Jesus Christ. I don't know exactly what content will be on this channel, but I want it to be focused on becoming disciplined disciples. I want it to focus on Jesus Christ, on the repentance and the joy that we can feel from following him. So I hope that you'll follow along and embark in this journey with me, and that we can all become more devoted members and followers of Jesus Christ.
That's what I'm talking about, bro. That's the kind of stuff that we need more of on the internet, okay? So, like I said, go flood Caleb's page, Latter-day Valor, with some love. Britton, if we can leave a like on this video just right now, if you wanted to click like, is that okay? I know we're signing to your account. Boom.
Good.
There you go. Liked. Shout out to you, Caleb. That's awesome. So we need more members. Like I said yesterday, we need more LDS daily shows. We need more LDS daily shows. We can only provide so much of a perspective, okay, from where we're coming from in our background. We'd love to see more members throwing their hat in the ring and doing that. So jumping into our feature story for today, all right? Many different facets to this, okay? But there's this man out there by the name of Sean McDowell, and he is a self-professed Christian evangelical, and he engages in Christian apologetics and teaches at a place called Biola University. And from what I can gather, it's kind of like this online Christian Bible university thing, and he does a lot of episodes with his son, and, you know, he's just an evangelical that makes content about his religion. Well, recently, he has kind of taken more of a direction of making just a ton of content about the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And if we scroll down a little bit here, just to that second row of videos, Britton, out of his last 6 episodes, like for example, it says, "You cannot see my face," what Exodus 33 actually means. It says, God does not have a physical body. So obviously taking a nod to our belief that God does have a physical body, God the Father and his son, Jesus Christ. And then his next video is, I visited a Mormon temple, where he actually did the open house in San Diego with Luke Hansen and Cardin Ellis. And then he interviewed a stake president and said, asking a Mormon leader my hardest questions. And then he takes a little break for one episode, but then gets right back into it with how the internet is reshaping Mormonism. And then the thumbnail says, the new Mormonism. And then it looks like he has another video premiering tomorrow that says, are the 11 Book of Mormon witnesses reliable? So he's really honing in, right? And one of the reasons that I think he's doing this is kind of in lead up to a 10v1, one Protestant versus 10 Latter-day Saints that's going to be happening in October, that actually myself, Hayden, and many other awesome, not to say that I'm awesome, I think I'm all right, but many other LDS content creators like Jacob Hansen, Hayden Carroll, and some other cool guys are going to be engaging on a very well-known platform called the Digital Social Hour in a episode of Outnumbered, okay? That's going to be happening in October. And you know, there's been some recent controversy around, you know, this channel, because there was another 10 Latter-day Saints versus one evangelical that happened just recently with Ryan from needgod.net that actually did a debate with Jacob Hansen on The Way just recently. And what was interesting about this is, if you look at that picture, I don't know how well versed you are in the Latter-day Saint online sphere, but there's some guys in there that I'm actually friends with. Ben Pachi, I can't remember how to say his last name. I'm sorry, Ben. But he's a good guy. I'm not sure how, you know, versed he is in debating and things like that of theology. But then you have guys like Shane Baldwin and 2 of his really good friends, Latter-day Chad and David Douglas. And we've talked about Zion Media a few different times on the channel here, and I'm not going to ad hominem or disparage anyone, but what's kind of concerning about that is, one, Shane Baldwin has been trespassed from all church property and has hinted that he might be excommunicated, but he doesn't fully know. But he's going out there self-proclaiming as what he claims to be the Davidic servant, as someone that is chosen by God to do a lot of work in ushering in the second coming of Jesus Christ, and that he is in direct contact with people like John the Beloved, with John the Baptist. He actually brought a guy on that claimed he was John the Baptist on his channel the other day. The Galactic Federation of Light, which essentially are extraterrestrial beings, prophets from the North Country, like a lot of stuff, okay? But what's very concerning is the vague threats that he is sending out to other content creators in the online space. And Shane, if you're watching this, I would just honestly, humbly ask if you could help me understand how this behavior is congruent with someone that allegedly has a divine calling of being a Davidic servant, someone that is, working in conjunction with former apostles chosen by the Lord Jesus Christ to bring about a great work. And if you're not understanding what these vague threats are, Britton, if you'll pull up these two videos here. There was one because Jacob Hansen brought up the concern of like, hey, if you're going to go out and represent the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, it's a little bit problematic that, at least one of the people brought on is trespassed from all church property because he's actively engaging in behavior. And I didn't even mention how he's selling AI-generated blessings of healing for money. And so that's kind of concerning as well. And so then Jacob expressed his concern for this. And this is Shane's response, okay?
Also, go big on me, Dave, because I need Jacob Hansen to hear the words of my mouth. Jacob Hansen, come on, dude. You're better than that. Somebody clip this and send it to this guy. He literally is a tattletale. In prison, we call them snitches. And you know what snitches get? In prison, they get stitches. He literally calls, I went on a show, Jacob Hansen. Do you know that those guys aren't even Mormons? Jacob, you're going to tell me I'm not a Mormon, pal? Are you going to tell me that I'm not a covenant keeper? You're going to tell me that I'm not Mormon? I've given everything I have to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, even my membership. I don't know what they've done with it. I don't know if they've excommunicated me or not. I don't really care. I'm a Mormon, just like a Jew will always be a Jew. I will always be a Mormon. Jacob, I affirm that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is the Lord's church.
He calls Jacob Hansen a snitch, and he says, having been, a prior felon and spent a lot of time in, I think it was 5 years in prison, that snitches get stitches. And so I don't know what other message could be derived from that as basically tread lightly, Jacob, because if you're going to be a snitch, that's what snitches get, stitches. And so kind of interesting behavior from, I guess, someone that proclaims to be the Davidic servant, and then followed up by this that he says about D. John Butler, that allegedly as the Davidic servant, he is hinting at possessing what he says are the keys of death and hell.
Now, the real question is, David Butler, are you willing to sit down with me face to face? Now, if I do have the keys of death and hell, I would say tread lightly when you start mocking me. Because I'm telling you right now, God will not be mocked. And I think you've heard that before. And God does not like it when you mock his son or his daughters, for that matter. There's a super chat that just came in. We'll see if we can flash it up on the screen here. Keys of death. Restored Truth died hours after trying to attack you and after spreading lies about you. He wasn't a nice guy. It's true, some people have pointed that out, that the last post he made on his story on Instagram was saying that I wasn't Mormon, and we're going to get into Jacob Hansen and him calling me, I'm not Mormon. But mocking's like, dude, if you don't like me, then wear your normal clothes. Don't put some weird thing on your head.
Right,
I know why you're doing that.
So you see there, he's saying to Dave Butler, look, if I do have the keys of death and hell, tread lightly, insinuating, look, you might end up dead if you're going to be mocking me and my professed calling, right? Now, you can have whatever opinion you want on, Dave's approach and other people on calling out Shane, whatnot. But it's very concerning to send out those vague threats and then to have one of this dude's followers to then say, oh, yeah, didn't Restored Truth pass away just hours after calling you out online? And then he goes and basically reads it and insinuates that that could possibly be the reason that Chuck passed away, which is such a sick and twisted thing to say or even hint at. Okay? Look, so I know this was a little bit of a tangent here, but it's relevant with this 10v1 thing that's going to be happening in October, right? Because this just barely happened, and Shane Baldwin was one of the self-professed active members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints that went to represent on this big platform. We'll see how it goes. I don't know. But concerning nonetheless. And so I would love to hear the response from you guys in the comments. Do you think that this is the behavior that a servant of God that is communicating with allegedly John the Beloved is going to be engaging in? I don't know. It seems a little bit strange to threaten people's lives like that. But jumping back to Sean McDowell, he's changing his tune of, he's done videos on the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in the past, but it's interesting that 5 out of his last 6 episodes all about the church, okay? And so this one that he posted a day ago with these two people, Aaron Shafalafaloff, I don't know how to say it. I'm sorry, Aaron. And then Brandy Bronson. So Brandy, she is a self-proclaimed ex-member of the church that says when she was 27 years old that she left the church and found Jesus and converted to be an evangelical Christian. Now, from what I can gather, and I sent her a message trying to talk to her a little bit more. She hasn't responded yet, but hopefully I can give you an update soon to see kind of what branch of Christianity, right? Because what's interesting about this episode is they're talking about what they're proposing as schisms in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in different thoughts and beliefs, okay? Which I thought personally to be kind of hilarious coming from 3 evangelicals that I know are not on the same team when it comes to evangelicals, okay? And if you didn't know, there's many different thought groups in the evangelical realm, right? Because Aaron, he himself is a self-proclaimed Calvinist. Brandy, I'm not sure what branch. Sean McDowell, which interesting is I don't think he's a Calvinist, but there was a video that he did that he explains kind of some of the different groups amongst the evangelicals. If we click the next link over, I think is a 4-minute clip, the next one after that. Where he's asked a question that is directly related to Calvinism, right? And it has to do with predestination. And so he's going to go in and explain a couple of the different thought groups when it comes to evangelicalism that is very informative to help us understand where Sean is coming from, to then take a look at this clip from their video that they just posted yesterday.
Okay. Let's spotlight him.
What are your thoughts on predestination?
My thoughts on predestination. Okay, let me ask you a question. Can you define predestination for me, Josh, since you asked it?
That would be the belief that there are elect and non-elect, and all who are elect will choose to follow God and be saved, and all who are non-elect will not choose to follow God and will not be saved.
Now, the way you described this, if I heard you correctly, I think all Christians would agree with that. All Christians across the spectrum. Why? Because the Bible teaches predestination. Read Romans 9 and 10. The Bible teaches that there's elect and there's non-elect. And if you've been predestined or you're of the elect, you will believe. The debate is over what it means to be predestined and how or why somebody is a member of the elect. But every Christian who takes the Bible seriously has to believe in election and predestination because it's in there. Okay. Now, I don't have the time to walk through. This is a massive, and I will spend days with my students in class. But this is an example of that there's essential questions that Christians cannot differ over and be Christians. If you say to me, I don't believe in the Trinity, or I don't believe in salvation by faith, or I don't think Jesus is God, you've denied the essentials of the faith, and you're not a Christian. Now, this issue, Christians can differ on this, and it's important, but it's what you call a secondary issue. And what's hard about it is both sides point to different passages and scriptures they try to use to make their case. So there are passages like in 2 Timothy and in 2 Peter that talk about how God wishes that nobody would perish and that all would come to repentance. That seems to indicate that God's desire is that all of us could and would turn to him. On the flip side, there's others that say where Jesus teaches in Luke 15, my sheep know my voice. It seems to be that Jesus has selected his sheep. Now, my point is not that the Bible contradicts itself. My point is that the Bible kind of leaves this a little bit of a paradox, meaning God is sovereign, God is in control, his will is going to be done, and somehow humans are responsible. Those are the two truths that we know. Now, Calvinism, middle knowledge, and Arminianism are three different models that try to make sense of that question. Arminians move more closely towards human freedom. Calvinists move more firmly towards God's sovereignty. And middle knowledge, that would take me a lot of time, but basically middle knowledge is the idea that God looks and sees every possible world how we would possibly act and chooses a world in which we freely make the choices he wants us to make to create the world he wants us to create. Those are the three big options, and they're all within the fold of orthodoxy, okay? So I can't answer and give you all the details why, but wanted to help you frame it and think through it and maybe have some tools for seeing some of the debate.
So hopefully that informs the perspective a little bit more, right? And from what I've seen, I don't necessarily think he's in the Calvinist group, which, again, we talked about this on the show. If you believe that God created everything out of nothing, that he essentially, and then you also hold to the belief that he is all powerful and all knowing, then when creating you out of nothing, giving you your specific attributes and proclivities and different characteristics of what makes you you, inevitably, God would have to know exactly how those characteristics that he gave you would play out in your decision making to then lead you to burn in hell forever or to go back to heaven. Thus, God is creating people knowing exactly from creation that they are going to live in eternity getting tortured and being burned in hell. Okay? That's just the logical conclusion, right? And so that's why I greatly respect Calvinists, because they stand on that business and say, yeah, that is true, and thank goodness I have a surety in my salvation, and I'm one of God's elect. That's what they say. And so, going back to the video that they posted yesterday, Britton, is Aaron. He is a self-proclaimed Calvinist. Now, Brandy's going to make a little comment here that is just I found it so interesting. And Britton, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this mentality towards the nature of God.
Oh, boy.
But if you just want to click play here, it's going to just be, I think, just over a minute and a half. But
talk about this. It's secondary. Let's focus on what really matters. Sounds like your experience was very different from that, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. That was the whole point. It was like, who am I? I'm a divine daughter. Where am I going? I was sealed to my husband in the Sacramento Temple when in between semesters at BYU, because that's totally a Provo thing to do, right? It's just like, hey, let's go get sealed in between our studies and our semesters. And I knew that we were just going to create worlds and have spirit children and perpetuate that cycle over and over again, because to be stagnant, to not create, was damnation, right? It wasn't necessarily separation from God as much as it was we were here to build, we're here to create. And if you speak to older Latter-day Saints, they will still concede that. They'll be like, well, what do you mean? And this was the problem I had with creedal Christianity, was this idea that we're just here to glorify God. Because I'm like, well, like a bigger God would want you to become everything that he is and have those worlds and dominions and to be able to create the way that he does. And so I never truly understood when I was LDS what was so enticing about the Christian God and the message of why we're here. Because for me, I was an eternal, uncreated being who had the potential to do what the Father did. And I thought that that was more loving. So yeah, I didn't have that. There was no discrepancies when I was growing up with that doctrine.
so pause there. So, Brandon, what are your first reactions to that? Or do you need a second?
I mean, it sounds a whole lot more loving than, the other option.
Well, what's the other option, Britton?
Straight to hell. Straight to hell.
Well, here's the thing. Yeah, And I agree with you, because when she was describing that, I'm like, heck yeah, that's awesome. And she's like, and I thought that was more loving than the creedal Christian God. Well, she's speaking to Aaron here. He helps us understand an example of the loving nature of the creedal Christian God. You want to take a look at it?
Yeah.
All right. Click this next link over here. So he did a debate actually with Kwaku L. And this was posted 6 years ago. I think it happened longer than that ago. Oh no, this was on March 6th, 2020, right before COVID, bro. And so this was at UVU, and just watch this exchange. This is an example of the loving creedal Christian God that Brandy is referring to, okay? Let's take a look here.
God is so big that he has governed and orchestrated history, that literally every single act of evil is not outside of his control. All of evil and all of Satan is on a leash. And Jesus Christ has orchestrated things such that he gets maximal glory. And he has decided that sin should be a part of history.
Did Anne Frank, who died of typhoid fever, as we know, and she died a practicing Jewish girl, a beautiful, intelligent Jewish girl. That was her religion. Did God predestine her to be Jewish?
Shit.
Did God predestine her to be sent to the camps?
Yes.
Did God predestine her to burn in hell afterward?
It seems so, yes. I don't believe she's innocent of sin. I think she was worthy of condemnation. According to Romans 1 and 2, she's got the law of God written on her heart, and she by nature is carnal, and she does not love God. She does not have a disposition toward worshiping God, and she needs to be born again.
Can you feel the love from God that predestines his children to be tortured and burn in hell forever?
Oh, yeah.
So here's the thing. That's what he believes. That's what he believes. He believes that this loving, all-loving God created Anne Frank to then go through all of the hardships that she went through. Now, this is just one example, right? We could bring up a billion examples of people that have lived through absolute hell on this earth due to the bad actions of other people. And he is saying, God, he's orchestrating all that evil. He says that God is so powerful, so loving. There's no act of evil that is outside of his control. He has it on a leash, right? Do you have a dog, Britton?
I do have a dog.
Okay.
Yes. His name's Ranger.
Ranger.
Shout out to Ranger.
Shout out Ranger. When you're taking your dog on a walk, what's the purpose of a leash on the dog?
Man, he would go straight out in front of a car. He's dumb enough that. So, having him on a leash just keeps him restrained and, keeps him in line. So.
Yeah, you're in control. You're directing him where to go with this leash, right?
Totally.
And so to insinuate that God has evil on a leash and it's directing these evil acts over his children just based on whatever he wants to happen, whatever horrors and awful things he wants to happen to his kids, he's just letting this happen. He's predestining all this child rape and all these other terrible things. He is behind all of that evil. That is what he's saying, okay? Now, help me understand how that is just so much more loving of a view. And it's so curious because Sean McDowell also wrote a little article, if you want to pull up here, that I just found so curious. It's the one. There we go. It says, "Why didn't God make us freely choose him?" Okay, this is on SeanMcDowell.org. And it says, "No problem is more challenging for Christians and really all belief systems than the problem of evil." And dare I say, Britton, that no problem is less of a problem than the problem of evil from the Latter-day Saint theological perspective.
So true.
That's a hot take, right? Because where are we coming from? We are coming from a place where we do not believe that we are created out of nothing. We do not believe in ex nihilo creation. We believe that in some form or fashion, we have existed eternally, co-eternally with God in the form of intelligences, and that God created, and that word create that's used in the biblical text is the Hebrew word for to create basically out of existing materials. It's not this create out of nothing. It's basically to form and fashion to organize chaos into order. Right? And we believe that in some form or fashion, again, I'm not going to pretend like I was, I have all the details of exactly how that happened or what form of intelligences we existed, but we do believe that we have existed co-eternal with God, and that like a loving Father in heaven and a mother in heaven, they want exactly what all the parents watching this episode want for their children, the absolute best, and to grow and progress, and dare I say, become not only like them, but better than them. Right? Now, does that diminish their role as parents, right? Being like, for example, I don't have kids yet, but Hayden having 3 children, does that diminish the role that my mother and father have? No, that makes them a grandfather and a grandmother. It amplifies who they are, right? Because their children have progressed to a point in which they are participating in creation just as they did, and therefore bringing more glory to them, right? And that's how I see it. And that's how we see it from the Latter-day Saint perspective from the scriptures, is that it only adds to God's glory if we are to progress and be truly, like it says in the New Testament text, joint heirs with Jesus Christ. Okay?
I think that's just like one of the big puzzle pieces that Joseph Smith grabs. It's like the final puzzle piece that just puts the picture together,
Yeah, because that's the only way that true free will can exist, right? Is if God is not creating everyone out of nothing, giving them all their attributes. That a same example, I'm not going to relitigate that whole thing. But if we existed in some form or fashion in intelligences, and that God gave us our bodies here on earth, then we are truly responsible for our actions, because God isn't only, our Father in heaven isn't the originator of everything that makes us who we are, right? And so, again, we have no idea what our actions in the premortal life have to do with our situation that we're born into on earth, or the roles that we have in this life, right? We could speculate until we're blue in the face on that, and it's honestly very curious to think about that, because we do believe, just as it says in the Bible, that there was a war in heaven, and that Lucifer is a fallen angel, and that a third part decided to go after him. And they did not receive a body, but they are angels unto the devil, essentially. And so, in some form or fashion, we made a decision before coming to this earth, right? Now, other decisions, were they made before this life? Probably. Possible, I believe. Now, how much do those come into factor with our earthly situation? I'm very curious to find out, right? But the hinge point of all of this is the problem of evil. It's not a problem for the Latter-day Saints. And that is one of the strongest legs that we have to stand on. And creedal Christians will look at us and be like, well, show me exactly where that's laid out perfectly in the Bible. And it's like, I wish more Latter-day Saints would say this, but Jared Halverson has one of the best responses for this. And it's like, look, he shared an experience of where he was having some interfaith dialogue when it comes to baptisms for the dead. And where he read that verse in the New Testament where Paul says, or else why are they baptized for the dead if the dead rise not at all? And other Christians look at that and they have no idea what to do with that verse. And when he read that to him, he's like, that's where you guys get the doctrine of baptisms for the dead? And he's like, no, I'm sorry if you misunderstood that. That's not where we get it. We're not a scribal biblical religion. We believe in further revelation outside the canon of the 66 books of the Bible. We aren't a scribal religion to the Bible. We believe in ongoing revelation that has been received by a prophet of God, right? And so we can find places where our theology is hinted at in the Bible, and not where it's hinted at in the Bible, but God be thanked for calling a modern day prophet to be able to bring order to this chaos and perform that work through him to help bring clarity to these massive questions that I will agree with Sean McDowell are a massive problem for the rest of Christianity. If you're in the position where you're saying God predestined children to be raped or to be killed or all these other awful things, if you're saying an all-loving God is the one orchestrating those awful acts, and it's not just the incorrect use of the free will that God allows us to exercise, that's a big problem. And wish you luck with that. I don't think you're going to find an answer for it that is sufficient until you realize how logical the Latter-day Saint position is on that and realize how true it is. But hopefully that helps you understand that, you know, people like Brandy, I'm not sure exactly her personal, you know, situation and things like that that led to her ultimately forsaking the restoration and the truths found there within. But I personally am not going to put myself in the position to say that a God that predestines all that stuff and has evil on a leash and guides it wherever he wants it to go, that is more loving than a God that wants us to become like him and truly be joint heirs with his son, Jesus Christ. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Am I up with the night on that? And I'm happy to receive any criticisms that you have on that. So let's go into our Daily Dose of Babylon, shall we, Britt?
Let's do it.
Okay, our Daily Dose of Babylon is a segment that we should be doing every day. Forgive me for not. Some of these episodes get long.
We'll keep reminding him.
All right.
He forgets a lot.
We pick some stories that's not directly correlate or directly affiliated with things happening in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and but they are important enough that we want to talk about them. So this one was pretty shocking. All right, this comes from Fox 13, and the title of it is "Robinson Defense Team Says He Hit the Intended Target and Did Not Endanger Others." So I'm like, okay, so Tyler Robinson's defense is now coming out and saying, yeah, he did it, but he didn't endanger anyone else. Therefore, he shouldn't be put on trial for the death penalty. So I'm like, what are we talking about here? So scroll down here. It says, Robinson's attorneys say the bullet traveled above the crowd and prosecutors have not proven that he knew others who attended Kirk's event in Utah Valley University on September 10th were in danger, a potentially aggravating factor under state law that would make it a capital crime. And this is a quote. It says, the only evidence presented supports the bullet traveled above, not through the crowd, defense attorneys wrote in documents filed late Tuesday as the defense tries to block the case from proceeding to trial. So essentially they're saying, look, he hit the intended target. If you scroll down, that's kind of the phraseology that they use to say that not enough evidence has been put forward to put him on trial to then receive the death penalty. And so one has to ask, so they're basically just saying that he's the shooter and he pled not guilty so that they could fight those different aspects and then avoid the death penalty? Because that's kind of what it's looking like, all right? And then it goes into question, Candace Owens, are we really just going to put ourselves in the position of, you know, Tyler Robinson, he's innocent. He's pleading with his defense to prove his innocence, but his defense is now just going to say, look, he did take the shot, but he didn't endanger other people. Therefore, he shouldn't be put on trial to receive the death penalty. Is that the scenario that we're living in here? That now Tyler's defense is going against him? And I don't know. Help me understand what you guys think. We'll link the article in the description as well so you can read the full thing in its entirety. But this comes from statements made in a filing of Tuesday, so 2 days ago. But very curious. All right, today is day 8 of proving just how foolish the argument is from the critic's point of view that Joseph Smith made up the Book of Mormon from his own frenzied mind, right? And we have to recognize, like we always do, the facts that we know about the translation process from the multiple eyewitness testimony. That it happened in about 65 working days, that he had no manuscript, and he never asked to see where they were the previous day and pick up where they left off, but that he literally just continued, picked up right where they left off the previous day without going back and reviewing where they were at in the story, timeline, narrative, etc. Okay? Now, why that is so crazy when it comes to what we're taking a look at in these internal consistencies of the Book of Mormon is that there's so many tiny little details that are dropped in one portion of the text and then referred to sometimes dozens of chapters later. And we have to assume if Joseph Smith is making this all up, that he's keeping all of these little details perfectly hanging in the balance until he connects the dots without contradicting himself even once in narrative, timeline, or geography. Okay? And what does that look like in perspective? This massive, crazy web of all of these correlating internal consistencies, right? And we're going to link this into the description again so you can go check these out. But there's all these incredible little internal consistencies that we've taken a look at thus far. And one of them that we're going to be taking a look at today is going to be starting in the book of Helaman. And it's going to be Helaman chapter 13 when Samuel the Lamanite is just going in on the people and preaching unto them, okay? And he's basically warning them, look, you guys better shape things up or you're in for a world of hurt, all right? And Britt, do you want to read part 2 here? And I'll read part 1?
Yeah, got it.
All right, so I'm going to read the prophecy of Samuel Lamanite, and then Britton, you're going to read the fruition and see if they include all the same little details. Okay. So in verse 32, chapter 13, it says, "And in the days of your poverty ye shall cry unto the Lord, and in vain shall ye cry." And then in verse 33, it picks up and says what they shall cry. It says, "Oh, that I had repented and had not killed the prophets and stoned them and cast them out." Now read the fulfillment of the prophecy.
Yes, and so in 3 Nephi chapter 8, verse 25, it says, and in another place they were heard to cry and mourn, saying, "Oh, that we had repented before this great and terrible day, and had not killed and stoned the prophets, and cast them out."
Perfect. Perfect.
Yep.
And so we have here chapters later, okay, in the translation process, 3 days later, that Joseph Smith, if we're saying he made this all up, that he's perfectly aligning, okay, this is where the prophecy is going to be dropped, and then the fulfillment, I'm going to include all of the same little aspects, that they're going to cry unto the Lord, that they're going to say, "Oh, that we had repented and not killed the prophets and stoned them and cast them out." All the while, he's also maintaining in balance all the other details of the same or the same type of internal consistencies that he still has open loops for, okay? Which to me, I'm just going to say, I believe that Joseph was inspired of God and that through him, God performed a marvelous work and a wonder. And that it is unreasonable to assume that Joseph had all of the genius at his disposal to maintain all of these perfect little details in harmony with one another and not contradict himself at all. Now, if you don't think, oh, that's not very impressive, again, this is day 8 of doing this, and we've gone through some of the most intricate ones already, right? But hopefully for those of you that are intrigued by all of these little internal consistencies, that was one more little party trick to show you just how complex the Book of Mormon narrative actually is. But, you know, if you come for the party tricks, what's going to make you stay is the incredibly rich doctrine of Jesus Christ and the spirit that emanates from each of the pages in the Book of Mormon as you feast upon the words of Christ, which I encourage all of you to go and do. So we're going to cap this episode off reading a couple of your comments from yesterday's video, which if you didn't see, we did an analysis on the church audit that our friend Jared Smith, friend of the show, from Heliocentric, did as he went to General Conference. And he went on an LDS cruise before, read the entire Book of Mormon, and this was his 3rd little video on the church. And so he had some criticisms on General Conference that we took an analysis of yesterday. So if you haven't seen that, go watch it. But here's some of the comments from Braden Price, 24. He says, Yeah, I think sometimes people really confuse the purpose of General Conference. Like this example, his examples of the big things he wanted to hear about. If the apostles were to talk about the threat of the nuclear arms race, what on earth are the majority of us going to do about it? What are our brothers and sisters in small countries across the world going to do about that? But what we can do is change ourselves by coming to Jesus Christ. And that's what General Conference is all about. It's so true. Like we talked about yesterday, is Christ himself in his earthly ministry, he was far more preoccupied with preaching repentance and getting people to change their very nature than dealing with the tyranny of Rome and being a political Messiah, which the Jews, the reason they didn't, recognize him and they missed the mark is because they expected something that Jesus just wasn't preoccupied about. He wanted people to repent. So phenomenal comment. Another one that has to do with that is from Lubricated Heelys, which he says, Jared wants activists, but the church creates disciples of Christ. This is what changes the world. Love that comment. That's phenomenal. And then here it comes from Unlimited Pizza. He says, maybe I shouldn't read these names, but they're awesome, okay? Unlimited Pizza. He says, when I served in a bishopric, I was blown away by the generosity of the church with its tithes and offerings. It really changed my perspective on the purpose of those and even my own finances. Members and local communities benefit so much. Just an awesome program, TBH. It's true. You don't even need to be a member of the church to be able to go in and get financial aid or to get a slip to go to the bishop's storehouse. Like, it's truly incredible. And those that have worked in those positions know just how generous the church truly is on the local level as well. And then here's another one. It says, I find the film The Matrix so relatable as a Latter-day Saint because I think it really describes the difference between the people who just see a boring world and those people who can see the source code behind it. But the natural man receiveth not the things of the Spirit of God, for they are foolishness unto him. Neither can he know them because they are spiritually discerned. I think that's kind of funny. It's like, everyone that's been baptized into the church, you've snapped out of the matrix, right? It's not joining Andrew Tate's program that's going to snap you out of the matrix. It's joining the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. That's when you will be able to discern how, things in the world truly should be or are. I don't know. What do you guys think about that matrix example? Britton, do you feel like you've broken the matrix being a member of the church?
I mean, you definitely have a different paradigm to think about. Yeah. So
we are truly gold-pilled, as they say. Once you've found the gospel of Jesus Christ, the restored gospel of Jesus Christ. But a lot of stuff contained in today's episode. Hope you enjoyed it. We're going to be having a very special guest on tomorrow's episode, Mr. Jonah R. Barnes, the author of The Missing Ministry of the Risen Christ, How Apocryphal Texts Unveiled Jesus Christ's Lost Temple Endowment. We are so excited for those of you that are going to be joining us tomorrow night at the event. We're so excited. I think the link is still available. I'm not sure how many tickets are left, but if you want, you can just click the link in the description. We are actually shipping books today. So very exciting, great stuff. And remember, if you're not looking at the world through a restored gospel lens, you're only getting half the story. God bless.